Today on the Ask Brady Show, we talk about the best way to get noticed and hired by a church when you're starting at ground zero. Well, hey there, Pro Church Nation, and welcome to the Ask Brady Show, episode number 33. We've got 4 great questions from the people of Pro Church Nation, and I'm joined, as always, to my left, your right, it's Roxanne.
It's true.
True, it is. Behind the camera, the editing wizard himself, Joe Nex. Fam, and the man with the cam, Alex Mills.
Thanks. It's not really as special as it sounds because I work here, but I'm here.
All right, Roxanne, take us away with the first question.
The first question comes from Juan, and he sent in a video.
Hey there, Brady. Hello, Roxanne. Usually I listen to you guys while I am mowing the lawn, but today I'm in the office. Listen to you guys on the YouTube channel. Got a couple questions here. One's church related, one is not church communications related, but the first one is I focus a lot of our social media strategy on Facebook because that's where our audience is at, but we do have a little bit of an audience on Instagram. And do you guys think that I should focus my attention on doing Instagram stories or just doing an Instagram post, or do I do both? Or a second question is, I love the artwork that you guys always have on the back wall. What inspires the pictures that you guys hang up behind you? So love what you guys are doing. Thanks for all the free help that you guys offer churches.
Thanks for the question, Juan. Very much appreciate it. And concerning the Instagram presence that all of us are trying to maintain, I would say in order, firstly, the Instagram posts are what are going to be more important than your Instagram stories simply because of the permanence, right? Like if you only did Instagram stories, someone could theoretically head over to your Instagram profile and see nothing there. And they would think, oh, this account isn't active at all. And so that's why posts are still the most important thing, simply because they have lasting power and they don't expire after 24 hours. With that being said, I find, and this is just anecdotal and not based on any data that I find that when I'm posting stories consistently, the engagement that I get with my permanent posts increases significantly. And I think this is simply because of visibility. When you are in someone's, stories feed at the top and in their actual Instagram feed scrolling through, you're just seeing more. People are more likely to interact. You can use stories to push to your actual post. You can use your post to push to the actual stories. And I think that Instagram has given us a tremendous, tremendous platform to use both stories and posts in tandem. So if I had to rank them, I'd put the posts first and stories second, but I would highly recommend that you do everything you can to use both in tandem. They work much better when you're doing both rather than when you're just doing one. So I know that this requires more work, but Instagram stories is pretty simple. In fact, I was just thinking as I was answering this question, hey, I haven't posted an Instagram story today. I'm going to do this after Ask Brady. It's going to take me 1 minute, and it'll be up there, and it'll be valuable. And so I highly recommend that you use both. Use them in tandem. I know that is a little bit of a tall order because even as you said, the primary audience that you have is on Facebook more than Instagram. And most churches are going to find themselves in this boat. So if you're listening, you're likely going to have a similar, if not identical, just difference in audience. What's the word?
I don't know. I was going to say split.
Yeah, that's fine. Split of audience is totally fine. That's much better than Point being, use them in tandem. If I had to rank them, Instagram posts, number 1, Instagram stories, number 2. As for your question about the pictures on the wall, no idea what you're talking about. Go to the next question.
All right. Question 2 comes from Tanis, and she sent in a video.
Hey Brady, my name is Tanis and I work at a church just south of Ottawa in Kempville. It's called Southgate Church, and we have a really young team, and it's been growing. And we're just curious what kind of things you guys do for team building there at Pro Church Tools. So you guys seem to have a lot of fun together, and but also stick to the vision and the goals of Pro Church Tools. So what are your favorite things to do? I noticed you guys were away on a retreat, and that's awesome. And I'm part of planning for those kind of things for our team. And I just wanted to know how you guys stay on track of sticking together and not going your own way. And shout out to Roxanne for working with all y'all guys. Bye.
Thanks for the question, Tanis, and indeed a big shout out to Roxanne for working with all of us dudes. It's a conversation that we have pretty frequently. Roxanne, do I need to hire more women?
No, I'm good.
Okay, cool. So just so you know, I'm not a terrible person who refuses to hire females. That's not what's happening. It's just one of those things. And the people that are on the list of our next hire, several women are there because we're trying to be more intentional about that. With that being said, back to your question, Tanis. It is very timely because we did go on a company retreat this past weekend. And so all 14 who were available drove up to the Blue Mountains in Ontario, Canada, which is cottage country here on the big lake of Georgian Bay. We rented a chalet. We all piled into this 3-level chalet and spent 5 days there. We had a private beach that we enjoyed with soccer fields, volleyball courts, barbecue. The chalet was nice. We went to a ton of great restaurants in that area. We just had a fantastic time. And I would say, reflecting on this retreat, I think it was better than last year's retreat.
I would agree.
Which is good because that means the next year's retreat can be even better. And we're trending upwards. You know, when you do something like this where you get everyone in one place, there are a lot of complications that me, as a guy, perhaps do not necessarily empathize with or could have predicted. So the first one we went, and some of the people, guys and girls included, were like, can we make a meal plan? And I was like, meal plan? We'll just figure out what we eat when we go. But of course, we're all millennials. So every single one of us, me included, has some type of crazy food plan or food allergy. So no one can eat anything of the same thing because the amount of people that were gluten-free or carb-free in that home, me included, I think outnumbered the people who were eating carbs, which is pretty impressive. Go millennials. The amount of avocados in that fridge.
This is true.
Point being, the retreat has worked out exceptionally well for us these last 2 years. Interestingly, I came in today and everyone was like gathered around the kitchen. I've been running some errands today, and like some people that I don't normally recognize, like talking with each other, were like conversing. And in the last year, we've added a lot of new people. Like we grew by, I think, 30 to 50% as a team over the last year, which is considerable. And when we do these retreats, we invite the spouses and the families. So we had like, let's say half or more new people at this retreat. And just the first day, second day back, I've noticed that people are a lot more comfortable. It's hard for people to come in who don't necessarily have a rapport, knowing that, and if you don't know this is how we've hired for the most part. I hire my friends. And so the last 2 hires that we've had were either not connected to the group at all or connected through marriage. And so they didn't really have a pre-existing relationship with most people. They come in and it's not always easy to kind of fit in. And so something like this retreat where you shove everyone in a chalet for 5 days can help quicken and speed up that process. Of course, it can also do tremendous damage and ruin everything, but that thankfully did not happen. And so we'll take that and be glad that that was the case. But there are so many things that you can do as, team building exercises. We've talked about like once things like settle down a little bit and our main products of Storytime and Nucleus are both live, we're going to try to like maybe do some like Friday afternoon stuff where Friday afternoon you do some type of team building thing. Maybe that's possible, maybe it's not. But the point being is like you can do things that don't require a 5-day retreat. I'm thinking just in our Niagara region, there is like a zip lining course or like this like high ropes course just down the street. We could go to that. Okay, obviously that's not a good option.
I'm terrified of heights.
No, this is great. See, when you force someone to do something, they overcome their fear.
Nope, that's false.
Pretty sure that's how it works.
I think you're wrong.
Okay, well, you are the one woman, so I'm going to defer to your logic on this one because I had to do that on the retreat. Shouts to the women on the retreat for like cooking and cleaning and do so much of the stuff that I felt responsible for last time and hate to its very core. So shouts to that. Point being, you can do so much in an afternoon, a day, or 5 days. I think it's very, very helpful to get your team out of the normal routine, get them doing something different. There's a reason like these cliche icebreaker games and like team building activities, there's a reason they exist because when you have, we talked about this with small groups, when you can get a group of people, whether they're familiar with each other or not, and get them to meet around a common activity, whether it be ultimate frisbee or beach volleyball or cooking a meal on the beach or playing board games or cooking a meal at home or watching Sunday night football because football launched this weekend, whatever it is, gathering for a purpose around a common thing. That common thing acts as like this icebreaker, and then kind of relationships, because we're human beings and we love being relational and we need one another. It kind of just grows naturally out of that gathering. Mm-hmm. And the key is just finding something to gather around in the first place. And so the more that you're together, usually like the faster the team building process happens, because you're just like, there's so much of being around each other. But again, that can also be like really upsetting for some people if you have social anxiety or if, you know, you're extremely introverted, whatever that might be. And so that's something to consider as well. You can do it just on an afternoon. I will say that I feel like we have something going for us in that we were all kind of friends beforehand, and that shouldn't be overlooked. You know, that's something that's unique to us, and we're very privileged in that way. We're also basically all the same age.
Yeah.
We're all the same ethnicity. We're all of the same faith, and we all come from similar, if not identical, backgrounds, right? And so there's not a ton of diversity here, especially when it comes to the type of things that we believe, the type of families that we came from, and the type of things that we care about and are familiar with. And so that makes it a lot easier too. If you have people from a ton of different backgrounds, if you have people from a ton of different generations, now the intermingling can become a little bit more difficult. But what I will say is that I think the more that I surround myself with people that are different than me, and we're trying to do this more and more, like the more beautiful it is. Mm-hmm. And and this is like, we started off this question by talking about how there's only one woman that works here. And like, let's be frank, we're all white people that work here too. And Niagara Falls is only has 6% visible minorities in the entire region. 6%. So that means 94% whiteys. And that just means that like we could hire 11 people, and then that 12th person, if they were not white, that would be reflective of the demographics around us. So we've still got a ways to go. With that being said, we don't need to be reflective of the demographics around us. But the point is that, you know, we are reflective right now of who's around us, minus the women, because there's more than 1 in 9 women in Niagara Falls.
I would assume so, yes.
So the bottom line is here, I like the idea of doing activities, icebreakers, team building exercises. They can be fun and not lame. And what they usually do is they break down walls, break down barriers, and they very quickly foster relationship by getting people out of their normal routine, what they're normally expecting and used to, trying something different.
Yeah. And I just want to add, like, it doesn't always have to be something extravagant either. Like, I know a couple of us on the weekend were talking about how awesome the retreat was. So we were like, how can we pull this through like further into the week and like into our lives? And so we've started to eat lunch together more often because we want that to continue. So it doesn't have to be like super massive. Like you don't have to go away for a 5-day weekend. It can just be something small.
That's really cool because I didn't know that you guys were talking about that. And it's something that I think about a lot, which is when you work together with your friends, it's very easy to feel like, oh, I'm hanging with my friends and I'm filling that need. But like, there's something so special about doing stuff outside of work.
Yeah.
And that's something that I'd like to see us, if possible, like, let's try to coordinate that. We need to hire someone who can just coordinate that.
All right. An event coordinator for the office.
Exactly. All right. Question number 3.
All right. Question number 3 comes from Geraint. I apologize if I pronounced your name wrong. He said, what would you put on a reading list for people wanting to make their church more engaging, attention-grabbing, and digital?
Thanks for the question, Geraint, whatever it may be. We appreciate your question. Regardless, I last year in 2016 read more than 52 books. I had this goal to read more than one book every single week. In 2017, take a guess how many books I have read.
0.
That is correct. 0 books. Now, the reason for this, to explain why, is that in 2016, we were kind of in a rebuilding year as a company, trying to reevaluate who we are, who we wanted to be, and where we were headed. And that year was very clarifying for me because it allowed me to construct a very clear vision that I think now all of us understand. Where beforehand we were like, what do we even do here? We make video announcements sometimes. I don't know about much else. Brady writes blogs. And now we have a very clear path of where we're going, you know, Nucleus and Story Tape being the 2 main things. And that has been great. And it's also led to something else. What I find is that when I read a book, what normally happens is my brain is like, look at all these new concepts and ideas. You could do this, this, and this. The reason that I haven't been reading at all in 2017 is because I know exactly what we're doing.
Right.
And there's nothing I've tried to read some books. I've got one chapter in, maybe I got an idea or two, and I was like, you know what? I just don't need this right now. And that's actually been freeing for me because, and I'll get to your actual question, Jerry, in just a second, but it's been freeing for me because I've often felt like, if you're not reading, you're not leading. Wow, right? But what's very freeing is knowing that, like, look, the ebbs and flows of content and engaging with content are important, and I will enter into a time where I'm reading very consistently again. I'll also say that I listen to a ton of podcasts, and so it's not like I've just like neglected outside material. I just find podcasts so much more convenient, and I'm getting enough new ideas from there that I have to filter through and reject when necessary. It's just books, I just haven't been able to work that in. With that being said, here are the 3 books that I've found most helpful for me. The first one is a book called Content Inc., and this is a very basic kind of introductory book to the idea of content marketing, the idea of giving with value first, and then kind of building trust with your audience, and then helping them take the action that you want next. Most churches and ministries, simply because they are not too familiar or don't have someone who knows too much about digital, basically use social and the internet just for themselves, very selfishly. And not only is that just anti-Jesus, it's also just dumb and doesn't work. So like practically, it doesn't make any sense to do that. We built our entire company, our entire audience on giving, and then asking. Basically, we just give, and ask. And so that leads me into the books that I'd recommend. The first one basically is that exact concept by Gary Vaynerchuk called Jab, 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 Right Hook. The whole idea is that you give, and ask. And that is the thesis behind pretty much everything we do. 2 other books by Gary Vaynerchuk, because he is someone I highly look up to. The Thank You Economy and the Ask Gary V book. So those are the 4 books that I'd recommend. Check them out. I'm also huge into podcasts, and I listen nonstop to things. At the end of the day, though, I think it's also important to say that as much as books can be helpful, nothing replaces in the digital world being a practitioner. Right. And I will say this every single time this comes up. I, before starting Pro Church Tools, read a lot and took a lot of courses and engaged with content and podcasts and articles on what it meant to run an online business. And then I started an online business and learned more in the first month than I did in the entire year prepping. And my thought process going into it was, I need to know what I'm doing so I don't make a mistake. But you can never protect yourself from making mistakes entirely. Right. I made the mistakes anyway, and I wasted a year just reading and sitting on the sidelines. To work and operate in the digital world that is moving faster than any technology that the human race has ever seen. Like, we've never seen this type of change in pace in technology and communication, where you finally learn something and then it completely changes. We've never seen anything like this. And so the only way that you can actually live and thrive in this world is to be a practitioner. You're on the platforms every single day. You're writing, you're videoing, you're podcasting, you're on Insta, Twitter, Facebook, YouTube. You're just there because that's the only way that you can actually make an impact. Because if you read about it, by the time you've read about it, it's probably already changed. Yeah. And by the time that you start implementing it, it's definitely changed. Whereas if you had just been going with the flow every single day, you could react to your audience rather than the macro trends, which it's not bad to pay attention to the macro trends. But if you're reading about them and then reacting, you're probably waiting too long. And none of that, even if you didn't wait too long, no reading will replace practice. I can read every single day, and I can know impeccably in my mind how to execute a perfect golf swing. I will go to the driving range, as I did 3 weeks ago, and be utter trash. And realize if I did this 2 hours a day, 2 hours a week, I would improve. I could read every single golf book out there, and it would be helpful to an extent, but it would not help me actually execute and understand what it's like to be on that range, to be on that course, and actually hit the ball the way I want to. Okay, so take those 4 books and implement them if you think they're going to be helpful, but never let books, reading, consuming content trump actual practitionership.
Right. All right. Last question comes from Terrence. He says, "Hey Brady, I love your show. I have a question. I'm looking to make a move from my hometown to another city. What would be the best way to get the attention of a church to become part of their digital media ministry?"
Thank you for the question, Terrence. This kind of dovetails from the last question, which is when I'm thinking about hiring someone, especially for a digital role, one of the first things that I do is I go to their social platforms and see what they're up to. I've recommended this when it comes to churches asking the question on the inverse, Terrence. How do we hire someone? I always say, look to see if they're actually doing it in their own life, or look at the last job that they had in lieu of that and see what they did. Because someone can go in there and pretend to be, this expert in social, and they'll be like, ooh, that person has a long T and is 26. They probably know what they're doing. No, they probably don't. Look to see if they are an actual practitioner. With that said, the next step from there, I don't think there's much of a better substitute, especially in this industry, trying to get in on the ground floor where most churches don't have a huge budget or don't have too much skills existing and would be glad to be helped out by someone, is to do free work. There's a big discussion online about whether this is good or bad. Some people think that it's just horrendous to offer free work in any type of creative endeavor whatsoever. Others are like, I hear what you're saying, but my story required a lot of free work. And our entire company is built upon free stuff.
Yeah.
Why are you asking me this question, Terrence? Why? Have you met me in person? I don't believe so. I'm 26. I'm Canadian. I don't live in your country, I don't think. Why would you ask me? Because you put your trust in me. Why? Because I have been so present online, giving away so much content, delivering value to you, that you have then in turn put your trust in me to ask a question about your future occupation or getting a job. Simply because I did free work. Free work that then became accessible to you, which then led to something else, asking a question. Maybe you've bought some of our products, all because it started with the free work. So what you can do is you can go to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, however many churches, and just be like, hey, I'm new to the area, and I know a lot of churches struggle in the realm of media and communication. I don't know. I took a look at and be personal, okay? Look into what churches are doing, and then ask them in a personal way. Be like, I noticed that your Facebook account has been pretty dormant. I'd love to just help with that. I'm actually really good at it. I'd love to do it completely free just for a month to kind of show you what's up, and hopefully it could be helpful for you. Or you go to a church and be like, I actually have great video skills. I'd love to just create a vision video for you for free, no strings attached, 3 to 5 minutes. I'll have it ready in a month. You could do any number of these things where you have an existing skill. Offer value up front. That church will then know that you exist, know that you are skilled or not, depending on what you deliver, and then you'll have an existing relationship that one day down the road will and can turn into an actual paid opportunity. I have received 3 or 4 emails today from companies saying, hey, let's have an affiliate partnership where if you send someone our way and they become a customer, we'll give you $1,000. Now, to preface, we never say yes to these things. We kind of have a rule on affiliates. But why are these companies voluntarily giving away hundreds of dollars? Because they know me, because I did free work. That is how you make a name for yourself when you cannot make a name for yourself. This might sound like a lot of hard work, and it is, but think about this. Before the internet, there was no other way to get noticed. Before the internet, what could you leverage? You could leverage, I know some people. How often does someone get hired? Does someone get elevated to a position of stature in our society? And it's just because they know somebody who knew somebody who knew somebody, right?
Yep.
There used to be a ton of gatekeepers. You want to get a show on NBC? Well, hopefully you know a producer who maybe knows somebody and you can pitch a show, and then maybe those people that you pitch the show to will say yes or no, and maybe you'll get a pilot, and then if the pilot's good and everyone likes it, then you can create more shows. Casey Neistat has 3 million people watching his vlog in a day with a camera that cost $1,000, and that's it. He's just very good, and no one told him no because there are no gatekeepers on the internet. Yeah. This is the most amazing opportunity for young people and content producers in the history of the world. And it's the only reason that we're sitting here as a multi-million-dollar company with 8 employees plus me, and we went on a great retreat. How did this all happen? We did free work. It was good free work, and that turned into cash money. It's very simple. It's not easy. Just because it's simple doesn't mean it's easy, but it is possible. And that's what's so amazing, because just 10 years ago, it was not possible. Yep. It's my best advice for you, Terrence, and I wish you the best of luck. With that being said, That is the 33rd episode of the Ask Brady Show in the books. If you want one of your questions answered, I highly recommend that you send in a video because that will mean you go immediately to the top of the queue. You can send that into hello@prochurchtools.com. You can also send in a written question with the hashtag AskBrady on Twitter or Instagram, or in the comments below on this YouTube or Facebook video with the hashtag AskBrady, wherever you may be watching. Thank you so much for joining us, Pro Church Nation. We love you. Go seize the 167, and we'll talk real soon.